And then that's when I saw more bruises on her. She had a black eye. Oh, I fell down. My name is Agnes Gould. That is my given birth name. And I live here in Membertou First Nations. I'm the oldest, and I was really happy when my mother told me that she's going to have a baby, even at a young age. I said, oh yes, look, I'm going to have a baby sister. Well, it didn't happen that way. She had a boy, so I had a brother, and then another brother, and then another brother, and then another brother, and I was like, oh my God, am I ever going to have a sister? And then she came home Easter Monday, and she had a little girl. I was like, oh yes, a sister. And I was so tickled, I was so happy, and I got to help raise my sister. And then later on, I was really happy when her and I became pregnant at the same time. We were expecting our children at the same time. And then at one point, my sister Virginia, which we call Ginn, by the way, she came and she presented a little girl to me. And she goes, I can't take care of her. Would you take care of her? And I said, yep. Now she was in a relationship with a very abusive man. At first it didn't start out as abusive. He came down and he says, I want the little girl. And I said, nope, not having her. And he held my ground and I wouldn't let her go. Then my sister Ginn came down and said, I'd like to have her back. And I said, okay. Didn't even hesitate when she asked. Right, so off they went. 2 weeks later, we lost her in a fire. And, my sister was very brave. And then that's when I saw more bruises on her. She had a black eye. Oh, I fell down. I go to powwows and I go to traditional gatherings, and I was in a sweat lodge. I was conducting the sweat. During the third round, we were praying for bodies. One had a cold, so they was asking for help with the cold, and I started to get blows to my body, to my head and to my body, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? So after a while, I couldn't do the fifth round, which is the bear round, right? So I asked another sweat keeper if they could do the bear round, and she goes, yeah. So she said she would, and I said, I'll meet you inside. So I went inside and we had the feast, and after the feast I went to bed. I said, I gotta go lay down. And I dreamt of two men dragging a young woman. It was almost daylight, super dark out, and there was a third person there, and they were dragging the young woman, and they were burying her. And I woke up in a panic. Oh my God, what is this? So my brother in New Hampshire, he had the exact same dream. So this all happened on April 24th, 1993. And it's a date that is forever etched in our minds. So I had called back to where I was, and they said, we're trying to find you. And I said, why? And said, your sister's missing. I said, what? So I jumped in my car and I'm trying to get back to, she lived in northern Maine at that point. So I tried to get there, couldn't get there right away, but I eventually did get there. And I started the process of making flyers, making calls. When the private investigator came and said, I have copies of the photos of the last documented place where she was. They had picked her up off the ground in front of a bar in Bangor, Maine, where two men were kicking her in the head, in the body. The police had come and picked her up off the ground, and they had taken off, and they had transported her to the Eastern Maine Medical Center to be worked on. While they were working on her, another victim had come in of violence, but of a gunshot wound. So that's a little more precedent than a sister's case. So when they were working on him, they turned around and she had disappeared. None of it added up. But according to the men that beat her up, that must have what transpired, because they said that the story doesn't make sense. Her children are all grown up. They were taken away. No contact was allowed. But I said, someday they're going to walk through the door. So through the wonderful world of Facebook, I have reconnected with my nieces and my nephews. And all our family have gotten together during the third week of August every year. We still do a physical search. Then we gather at a powwow up in northern Maine. And we do what is called a talking circle, healing talking circle. Her children will never feel the warmth of, how are you doing? How are you quiz? Tell me about your day. Or you'll get over your first heartbreak. The only thing that the children get every year now is in April, the detective still comes to them and still asks them, have you seen your mother, or have you heard from your mother? So that's our picture. Sister in Spirit, missing April 24th, 1993.